Welcome to our Squad Reviews. Today we are going to be doing a review on an anime called Tsukigakirei. I just want to give myself a round of applause for this. So, I did a first impression on this a little while back, pretty far back, and I had kind of promised a review, and it is finally here. In response to that, I'd like to make a few comments that I kind of addressed in my first impression. Mainly, I didn't notice the music as much as I thought I was going to. Kind of at the end of the first impression, I was like, oh, the music is really cool. I might, actually pay attention this time. Because I have a little bit of a reputation for not really noticing the soundtracks, and so I have to put some effort in when I go back to talk about them, so I actually have something to talk about. Which I think is just a fault of mine, not necessarily of the show itself. I'll get into more of that when we get to that section, though. And also, it didn't have as much tension as I thought it might, which was a relief for me, because that just stresses me out when I have to watch things that have, like, all this teenage angst in it. If you're wondering what in the world is she talking about, if you've seen Kimi ni Todoroki, Season 2. Let's just put it that way. Also, I thought that the line app might be kind of a crutch for their relationship, that they might have some trouble, talking to each other face to face after getting used to all this, just online communication. And that wasn't as much of an issue as I thought, which I thought was good. They still had to struggle a little bit to, find things to talk about and, figure out how to act around each other, but it wasn't like this giant issue, so. For those of you who are like, oh, I haven't even seen the first impression, I don't know what's going on, I'm just going to jump straight into the review now. So I'm going to talk about the general setup. So, Kotaro and Akane are your two main characters. They're in their final year of middle school, or junior high, or whatever you want to call it. And they kind of meet through sort of an awkward meeting of families. Like, they both go out to the same restaurant for supper, and they're just kind of like, oh, that person's in my class. And then they're also on the same committee for the sports festival at school. And through that, they kind of exchange Line contact info. And side note, if you don't know, Line is a texting app that's used commonly over in the eastern part of the world. It's pretty cool. You should check it out. And then soon after that, Kotaro asks Akane if she would like to go out with him, and she agrees. So we have Kotaro and we have Akane, who are two very different individuals. Kotaro is part of the literature club, and Akane's kind of main extracurricular activity is the track team. Overall, I think both of them are pretty balanced characters, and also both of them grow throughout the course of the show, so Akane becomes more confident, and Kotaro becomes a little bit more independent as he's trying to, make decisions for himself and figure out, what he wants to do. So the supporting characters are fleshed out as well. They support the main characters and also just kind of help interact with the plot and stuff. The only one that I felt could have used a little bit more work was Hira, but overall, it's pretty good. So as far as plot goes, the plot of this anime is a little bit different from the others. The main difference being your two main love interests kind of get together in the first few episodes of the show, as opposed to where it's, leading up to them getting together at the end of the show. So that was kind of different, and it changed the pacing a little bit of the show, so you don't have like that tension of, won't they actually admit that they like each other at the end, because they've already done that, and so they had to kind of figure out how to work out this relationship, also with the fact, that they're growing up and potentially going on to different places in life. I really enjoyed the ending for this anime. It had a few twists that I wasn't expecting, but overall, it was really good. Especially the credits, because in the credits they kind of give like this future of like what happened to them in the future, which is kind of, I feel like, is what I hope for every anime, because after the ending, it ends, but you just want to know, and that this kind of indulged in that a little bit, and so now I know, and it was very sweet. Okay, for the most part, this anime is pretty clean. There are a few minor flaws, but I'm not going to touch on them at this moment, because I don't want to be too much of a nitpicker, because overall, I think it was pretty clean. I just said that, but I'm going to say it again. Instead, I would like to take this time to talk about, I guess, for lack of a better term, Akane and Kotaro's relationship. Since they are in middle school, some might think that's a little bit of a young age range for them to be dating, and this is their first, instance actually dating, so it's not like they started out really, really young. And it is admittedly a bit of a gray area. Middle schoolers, they're just kind of entering their teenage years. They're trying to figure things out. Boys are starting to figure out, oh, girls. Girls are starting to figure out, oh, boys. I remember in middle school, of course, I had my share of crushes. And, some of my friends had, boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever. And I would like to think that I was a bit wise for my age. I had my moments, but I was kind of like, why have a relationship now? Because you're probably going to go on to different high schools, and even after that, you're probably going to go on to different colleges, and just what's the point at this point? So it is a little bit irrational, I feel like, because most romance animes are placed, in high school, when the characters are a little bit older and kind of more aware of their self-identity and stuff before tying themselves down to one particular person. So it's a little bit of a gray area. Maybe not the wisest decision overall. I wouldn't exactly condone dating in middle school, but I don't think it's a glaring issue. Okay, now we're going to talk about the sights and sounds, is what I like to call it, the animation, essentially, what you're looking at, and then also what you're hearing, so the soundtrack and sound effects and everything. This anime was a little bit different than some of the others because it kind of incorporated, 2D and 3D, which is a little bit controversial because it's hard to do that well and have them mesh together. I think part of the way that they tried to get them to mesh was they had these kind of strange white highlights on the characters half the time. It was consistent with shadows and bright sunlight. So if they're in the shadows, it wasn't there, but if they're outside or there was sun shining through the window, then it was. But it was just a little bit strange just to kind of have these little halos going on, and that kind of mimics the effect of the 3D animation. So sometimes the first few episodes I had trouble figuring out are they using 3D animation for the whole thing, or is this just kind of blending it? Because the 3D animation is mostly used for the background characters, or when they're doing a scene where they're all walking down the street and you have just people milling around, and then you have a bunch of little 3D figures and they're all kind of walking stiffly. So it's a little bit somewhat distracting, but I got used to it and it didn't really bother me, so I'm not going to make a big deal of it if you don't like it. Okay, so again, I didn't really notice the music, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Sometimes, soundtracks can stand out for a bad reason. They just don't fit, and it's really annoying. So I would rather have a show where, everything kind of blends together, a cohesive whole, and the soundtrack is really made a part of the story, and it flows and it ebbs and, it comes out. Because if you have music going on, the whole entire time, just a soundtrack when the characters are talking, and just when anything is happening, it gets, really grating on your nerves. It's like being outside in the wind for a really long time and you just can't really quite hear what's going on because the wind is always blowing in your face. And so, the contrast kind of allows for when the music to come in to be more, have more of an impact than if it was just going straight on through the whole thing. Tsukigakirei was an original anime, so it wasn't based on any sort of source material like a manga or a light novel. It contains 12 episodes, and there is one kind of filler episode. After the first 6 episodes, there's a little kind of a recap episode. So you can watch this anime on Crunchyroll, and also a little bit of an interesting side note. The title, which I've been saying this whole time, is Tsukigakirei, and it has a dual meaning in Japanese. It means, isn't the moon beautiful? But then it also is a different way to say I love you. So you have kind of that little. So I enjoyed the anime. I thought it was pretty good. Some people might disagree, but I watched to the end and I was really rewarded by the ending. And I would encourage you to check it out and see if you like it. Yay.